I'm going to talk to you today about the fact that when I'm 40, I hope I'm not a brand. Now, I'm betting that the very idea of being a brand is probably making most of you cringe. It's one of those phrases that makes us think of candidates on The Apprentice, isn't it? I think even a couple of years ago, I'm not sure how many of you watched it, but there was this particular candidate who actually described himself as a brand, and I think a nation shuddered. I asked people on Twitter how they saw the idea of personal branding, and I received precisely one response from someone saying it wasn't a negative concept. Everyone else was far less complimentary. But for a lot of people who blog or have something of an online presence, the idea that we must create and build our brand as a key to success is a constant feature of the digital world. I'm the digital communications officer at a charity, and I get several emails a day from people telling me that their product can help me make the most of my brand. And these people aren't cheap. Branding's big business. But I'm rejecting the current idea of what it is to be a brand. I don't think there's anything wrong with having, in effect, a mission statement, an idea of what you want to do and what you hope to achieve. But all too easy, I think this can mean a descent into insincerity, lack of authenticity, and writing for controversy over anything else. Just a bit about me. I've been blogging since the end of 2008. From 2009 onwards, I became this person who wrote about particular topics, often in a very reactive way, to current events and controversies which had suddenly sprung up and were getting a lot of attention on the internet. I probably wouldn't go so far as to say that I became a brand, but I definitely became known for saying certain things about certain topics. And here's the thing about the blogging world I've become a part of. The nature of it means that voices can become prominent very easily. You could probably write a couple of pieces that get picked up by journalists and they'll be calling you the voice of a movement. But just as easily you can fall off the radar. You cut back on the instant reactions and posts. You step away from certain debates. You write less just because you've got other stuff to do in your life, and as a result your profile changes. You've gone off-brand. So why am I not buying into this idea of branding? Just so we know, 40 is 11 years away for me. Somebody who writes online and works in digital communications, I could have a long-term plan for building my brand and assuring my success, but it's not going to work like that for me, and I want to explain why. Firstly, I want to maintain a sense of authenticity. This word has become such a cliche in recent years, hasn't it, particularly in Christian circles. You've got to reach out and connect with missing generations in a relevant and authentic way. And authenticity is this buzzword that some people now say is virtually meaningless, but I believe it still can and should have meaning, and it's what we should aim for. You can spot somebody being inauthentic a mile off, can't you? It does show. When I see people talking about becoming disillusioned with someone, it's often because their personal brand has become more prominent than their true voice. For me, sticking to writing in my own voice is important, not a voice that I think is going to make me sound more literary or more intellectual, you know. And secondly, I want to maintain passion for what I'm writing about. I want to write about things because I'm passionate about them, not because I've got a few half-baked ideas about something, but I know it'll translate to page hits. I think that as people of faith, if we have an online presence, we should be looking at our motives in that respect. I think that when you write in a reactive way about things, you can end up overdoing it a bit and feel like you don't even care about these things anymore. I don't want that to happen. I gave birth last year, and since that happened, I've had a lot less time for writing. And this really underlined for me that if you're busy and you don't have a lot of free time, what you do has got to be about quality over quantity. If you do feel passionately about something that's, controversial, by all means put yourself out there and talk about it, though. I do this, but long gone are those times when I would quickly churn out a blog post about something just because everyone was talking about it. And I felt I needed to add my voice to the debate. I think if you don't feel you really have anything to add to a debate, just, don't say something just for the sake of it. Thirdly, I want to have the right motives. The American blogger and author Rachel Held Evans says that she's often been asked who she writes for herself, for others, or for God. I've thought about this a lot over the past year or so, and I've done a lot of questioning of my own motives. But Evans says God created us to be communicative creatures, relational creatures. We can be quick to deflect praise for our work because we feel it should be all about God. But she adds, the desire to share our thoughts and experiences, to be heard, to be understood, to be recognised, to be affirmed, is not inherently selfish. Having the right motive doesn't mean we can't feel happy when something we write is successful or gets a lot of positive attention. I think we can over-spiritualise things in that respect. We just shouldn't be afraid to do what we're gifted to do. And finally, I don't want to build a profile for myself out of a sense of competitiveness. One of my favourite bloggers is an American woman called Danielle Vermeer. She writes about the intersections between Christianity, feminism and other justice issues. And earlier this year she wrote a post about why she felt like quitting writing, and it highlighted many of the things I'm talking about today. She painted an extremely accurate picture of the American Christian blogging community that was characterised by what she called an undercurrent of competitiveness, prioritising of those voices that already have a platform, like church leaders and people with book deals, for example, and people writing in a certain style because they want to make it. And Danielle wrote that what she wanted to do instead was build community, nurture relationships and foster conversations, making the platform known to lesser known voices in the process. And I think that's key here. If the digital world is supposed to be a democratising way to create, a place for true community and grassroots activism, a place to understand perspectives different to our own, then we need to make that a reality and be proactive about it, not a place where we simply create a persona to bring about our own success. That's not a place I want to be. I think there's so much joy in being collaborative, including more voices and fostering friendship. I want to talk about the fact I hope I never become a brand, because I think it also has so much potential to go wrong. I think that when your brand relies on you not going off message, there's a lot of potential for problems if you can't adapt and be a bit more real when that's what's needed. We see this time and time again when high-profile people whose brand is, for example, funny or flippant, have upset a lot of people and ended up being quite offensive, rather than take something seriously and just be a bit more sincere for once. In the past month, one particularly controversial writer and academic has actually seen his brand collapse around him as he's admitted to scandals in his private and professional life. And the promotion of his work and of his opinions by mainstream social justice websites, including Christian ones, has of course come under fire. And this was a prime example of what happens when people and media outlets prioritise brand and page views and controversy over integrity. It really shows how this can leave a lot of people feeling hurt and betrayed. A major problem for me with the idea of becoming a brand is I think people will tend to look no further than that brand and they fail to see the person underneath. I wanted to come back again to a quote from Rachel Held Evans on writing and branding. She wrote this blog post a couple of weeks ago actually, which fit in nicely with this talk. She said, "We are not our messages, no matter how much we believe in them. We are not our filtered photos, our tweets, our political and religious ideologies. We are not even the stories we tell, no matter how carefully and truthfully we tell them. We are human beings." This really explains that when we don't see past someone's brand, we do them a great disservice. These people we can't stand, or we think we can't stand, because we don't like what they write on the internet, or we don't like their little sound bites that have, set tongues wagging in the Christian community. They're so much more than that, and we run the risk of judging people harshly when we think otherwise. Now, I'm not saying I've never done that. I'm sure none of you can claim to have never done it either, but I think it's something that we have to remind ourselves of frequently. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think that having a clear set of objectives of what you want to achieve through writing and interacting online is a bad thing. Everybody has things that define them, and in some ways you could say that because of this, everybody has a brand. But having a clear idea of what you're all about and why is actually quite a good thing if you're just starting out. But as for devoting the next decade to becoming a brand, that just doesn't appeal. For me, I just really want to create community and support people, develop new friendships, be a passionate advocate for the things that I care about, and attempt at least to affect change. And I want to prioritise these things over popularity, page hits, retweets, accolades, and brand recognition, because I know I'll be freer to be myself and freer to create and collaborate with real purpose.